various changes in the academic industry are adopted differently by different fields of study. You see changes at a much faster rate in certain fields. So, in this context, do you think there's a difference in Figshare's adoption and usage between different fields of study? And could you also comment on the number of files and data sets that you currently have uploaded on Figshare?
Yeah, so it's an interesting one because pretty much across the board in academia, everything is becoming more digitized and computational. There is, and it's this weird term data. As I say, my data was videos. But for me, data is anything digital that is not a peer-reviewed published article. It can be, your dance recital. It can be a musical performance. We even have 3D dinosaur fossils. So there's all these new ways in different fields that are choosing to embrace technology because it makes their work a lot easier. But at the same time, these digitized formats, this data is different for different areas. And we work with publishers to visualize content for them within their articles. And that's a great way because when we work with different journals in different fields, we'll work with a chemistry journal and they'll say, we need these 4 viewers. We know that these file types are becoming more and more interesting. Um, so in total, we're probably approaching 2 million public files on Figshare now over the last few years. We've just started working with institutions, which is looking to take that up a level as well because they have big data needs. But we do see that a quite broad spread of usage across the different subjects. There's a lot of open research in the humanities on Figshare in the same way there is in the life sciences. I would say the life sciences and the medical sciences tend to dominate. I mentioned ecology before, having this general acceptance that people put stuff out there. But we do get a lot of neuroscience data. Um, it's often as well, you'll find that some subjects have subject-specific repositories where they can put their data, like GenBank for genetic sequences. But at the same time, we still do get a lot of genetics data. So there's people who don't have a place to put their data will put it on Figshare, but there's also people who want to get that all their credit in one place. They like the interface. They like the idea that we give them cumulative metrics on their profile. So if you make one file available and get 1,000 views and 5 citations, then why not upload 10 files, get 10,000 views and 50 citations? So there's this incentive structure for people to make more of their research available. And that's also what we saw in terms of the types of research that are made available. We also started seeing people uploading their posters to get credit for their posters that they couldn't put anywhere else, even their presentation and more recently their code. So the software that they've been writing to analyze their data. Some people just make software that's part of their PhD or part of their research, and they're not getting credit for it. So now they can using things like Figshare.
What about different regions of the world? Do you see a difference or region-specific differences in the adoption of Figshare? Editage, for example, reaches out largely to researchers in East Asia. So, do you think in these regions people are aware of Figshare? Are they using it? Or what are the reactions you've been perceiving?
Yeah, it tends to be obviously a lot of more recent usage has been led by funder policies. So in America, the White House has said that open research data is going to become the norm. The NIH, the National Institute of Health, that funds billions of dollars of research every year, has said that everybody they fund has to have a data management plan and that open research data is going to become the standard. So there's these drivers. In the UK, we have the Engineering and Physical Sciences Research Council has said if we fund you, you have to make your data available somewhere. So there's obviously where there's these funder requirements, there's drivers for people to use it. But at the same time, if we look at Australasia, we have been working with a couple of universities in Australia, Melbourne and Monash, it's come to mind, big universities where there aren't funder drivers, but they just think that this is a better way for an institution to manage their research data, to understand the impact that they're having. And that impact is really what seems to be key, particularly in Asia. We've done some talks out in China and Japan last year, and we saw that the credit, the ability, academia is a very competitive business. It's almost pyramid scheme like. So if you're a PhD or a student or an early career researcher, you have to prove that your research is having more impact than everybody else. Of course, if you get 2 papers in Nature, then you're doing very well, but it's very hard to do, and it's not everyone can do it. So if you have code that can be cited, if you have data sets that you know are going to have a lot of impact, you can release them through Figshare, get those citations for it, and that seems to really work well with the Asian audience in terms of they're very aware that it's very competitive and they need to get as much credit for their research as possible.
While Figshare is primarily targeted at researchers, what are some of the other stakeholders in the academic community that can benefit from it, and how? And do you also see the non-academic community benefiting from Figshare or buying into it in some way? And could you elaborate a bit on that?
I mean, that's an interesting question because it was designed for academia in the sense that I was an academic trying to make my files more discoverable and have more impact. At the same time, I'm now no longer an academic. So if I have data that I want to make available that could be useful for other people, this is a great place for me to do that. You don't need to have an academic email address or anything like that. At the same time, there's 2 sides to it. There's the people who use Figshare to make their data available, and there's the people who consume the data. So we have scientific journalists using it to interpret in certain ways. We have the funders themselves using it as a place to release their data. We have the Wellcome Trust who releases their data onto Figshare so that other people can interrogate it, and they're being completely open with their with how they fund things. So there's lots of different ways that people use Figshare, ways that we didn't anticipate in the first instance. People use it to share their accepted grant proposals so other people can see what gets accepted. At the same time, we have people who do citizen science. The people who, like myself, are not linked to an academic institution anymore, but they still have data that they produce. We have Zooniverse data on Figshare, which is a big citizen science project. So there's lots of things like that in which other stakeholders in this have a way to release data, but at the same time, the other stakeholders are people who can take that data and do more with it. And that could be commercial companies, that could be pharma, it could be people looking for research data about an illness that they have or an area of land that they're investigating. So there's loads of other use cases, and it's really important to think that academics are often so focused in their little niche of what they're working on that they think the only use case that people can have is to use their data in the same way that they're using their data, when it's often the case that people will come up with other ways to use data in a way that the creator never thought of doing to begin with.